January 16th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Okay.
Chair Cook? Present. Vice Chair Counter?
Present.
Supervisor Long?
Present.
Supervisor Fiedler? Supervisor Burney?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Our next item, approval of the minutes from Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. Are there any changes to the minutes? No, seeing no changes, the minutes will stand. Public comment is our next item, and we have quite a few people here for public comment tonight, I think. Administrator Witt is working on a call-in, right, from Congressman Tiffany. So we're going to start with that since it's a call-in. So he's going to be calling.
Congressman Tiffany, this is Ken Witt with St. Croix County. You are live during our public comment period. You are clear to go.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken. And it is my understanding that the county, St. Croix County, is considering a similar resolution as Chippewa County to take a pause to see whether refugees should be brought into western Wisconsin. And I just wanted to say that I support that at having a pause and being able to get full information. I'll give you two examples in regards to this, or two reasons why. One is in regards to coordination. If you look at 8 USC 1520 or 1522, it says very clearly in there that the federal government must consult and coordinate with local municipalities. They have not been doing that in my estimation. The second thing is the screening that has been going on in regards to not just refugees, but also to illegal immigrants generally and the various ways in which they can come into the United States has been suspect at best. And the best example I can give you is when the 78,000 Afghans were brought in August of 2021. I went down to Fort McCoy, asked the commanding officer, had these people who were coming in from Afghanistan, had they gone through the thorough process of being reviewed, and they had not. And it turned out later that the State Department said, and this is an official of the State Department, said, after all of them were brought out of Afghanistan in August of 2021, he said, let's just get them on the planes and we'll sort out the immigration stuff later. And that's been very consistent by the Biden administration, and it's part of the reason why I believe we cannot trust them to do the screening process properly. Also, if you look at so many countries where the refugees are coming from, you don't go down to the local DMV, for example, in Kabul in Afghanistan, and get the same information that you can get from other first world countries. And so it really should be a thorough vetting process that goes on. For example, there's something called a special immigrant visa that the previous administration required Afghans to go through because there was so little information available, and we wanted to make sure that people were not coming into the United States with terrorist ties. The other thing that I would say is that the cost of services is not being considered thoroughly by both state and federal government. When you take a look at schools and public health services, welfare payments, and various social safety net programs that we're so generous with here in America, we need to make sure that that does not prove to be too burdensome for American citizens. And I would note that the Housing Authority Director in Eau Claire County has said in a letter that we were CC'd on in my office that she is concerned that there's enough housing stock in Eau Claire to be able to handle these people, and actually would turn out to be a burden for local citizens who are trying to buy a house, that there would actually be less housing stock that's available. And that's just one example amongst many of the burdens that could fall on American citizens who are already here. So with agree with the pause, and in regards to the resolution to pause what is going on, I believe both the federal government and the state of Wisconsin need to be much more forthcoming about this. I believe the city administrator of Eau Claire was remiss in not fully getting full information to the people of Eau Claire and the Chippewa Valley when they were considering it. I'm not sure why they kept that quiet. If they think it's something that's worthy, it should be able to withstand public scrutiny. So with that, thank you very much for allowing me to share my remarks.
Thank you, Congressman. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will go through public comment now. I have cards here. I will call folks up in the order that I have the cards. I know there's some people that are in the overflow room, so what I will do is call the next person up and then let you know who's on deck. And apologies ahead of time if I mispronounce anyone's names. I'll do the best that I can. So we will have 3 minutes for public comment. I ask everyone to please try and be concise so everyone has a chance to state their public comment and respectful of everybody else's opinions. I know it's an issue that's obviously brought a lot of folks here, so let's move forward. All right, so the first part of public comment will be Mark Carlson, and on deck, Frank Roshnot Jr. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Mark Carlson. I live in Pleasant Valley. I'm also District 15 Supervisor of the County Board here. Most of the talking points that Congressman Tiffany said were right on. There's a lot of the things that we were going to say. One thing I would say, or ask Congress Tiffany to consider, is they have the purse strings in Congress, and they should look at defunding the organizations that are pushing this, using the power of the purse string if they don't want to. I know Congressman Van Orden has been asked by some of his constituents to do that. And then I went through firsthand experience 2 waves of these resettlements in St. Paul. And the first one was the Hmong, and everybody was a little worried about it, wasn't sure, it was something new. The Hmong helped us in Vietnam War, and that's why they said they were going to come over. The Hmong came and out-Americanized most of the Americans. They came, they put up flags, they took Constitution classes, they joined a melting pot, they assimilated, and started businesses, and that was just a great experience. There's parts of St. Paul that were totally revitalized, University Avenue area especially, if you know St. Paul. And then we had the Somalians come, and they stayed, they didn't become Americans. Even today, when you drive through, you don't see flags. They keep their language. A lot of them don't learn the language. There's areas of Minneapolis, after hours, because I Uber all through it, that are kind of no-go zones. They will not accept their Constitution because the Quran doesn't allow them to. So eventually that problem will go away, I assume, as the next generations will assimilate. But every place that we've had, like the Somalians especially, they've just had nothing but problems. It costs the community a lot, just like Congressman Tiffany was talking about. So especially without the vetting, and it seems like they're just trying to sneak them in. I'm totally for the resolution to at least do a pause on this and not rush to have. So thank you.
Thank you. Frank Roshnot Jr., and then on deck we have Carol Ivance.
I want to cover a few things. I have to read my statements. Welcome, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Roshnot Jr. from Woodville, Wisconsin. With my continuing education from the barnyard, I can only find 2 genders, male and female. I have friends every shape, size, color, thin and big, ethnic backgrounds, etc. Have any of you on the board or in the audience ever heard of the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights that we have in America? if any of you board members vote to bring refugee settlement to St. Croix County, that's bringing more taxation without representation. There is nothing in the Constitution that says the taxpayers have to fund this crap. And don't lie to the public saying that it won't cost taxpayers anything. Just look at the problems being created at our northern and southern borders with the permitted invasion by the current buffoon and his minions in office now. Again, costing the hardworking taxpayers massive amounts, including crime and possible terrorism. They are not vetted. I don't want to sound like a nut job, but I also don't care if you think I am one. I don't want to live under China, the crap we have to always buy, communism, fascism, Marxism, socialism, one world order, Green New Deal fraud, the Great Reset fraud, censorship, EGS scores, artificial intelligence, electric and gas rations. I love my big gas guzzling SUV. Digital currency. Digital currency will allow our gangster government to control what you can do and buy, just like China does, now to their people. With the computers in all the new cars, gangster government will be able to control where you go, including maybe not letting you go to work. And you're a total fool if you think they would never do that. Remember Canada, the truckers' credit cards were shut off. I can't stress it enough that you, all the taxpayers, have to step up and start an aggressive babysitting regimen at your local schools, libraries, cities, counties, state, the politicians, courts, everywhere. Asking lots of questions, requesting and looking at all documents, books, and a big one is to follow the budgets and money. They will make everything complicated and run you in circles. The fraud, waste, abuse, stupidity, incompetence, corruption, total dishonesty is massive at every level, every entity, including the failed education system. I can talk from a lot of experience. We all need to step up with courage, determination to save America from further destruction by the evil, sinister elites and the loons and goons they created in our education system.
3 minutes. Thank you.
God gave we the people our rights, freedoms, and liberties. I don't want to live in a third world hellhole.
We have a lot of people. Thank you.
All right.
To move it along, can we just please hold off on comments and applause from the audience? Thank you. The next speaker we have Carol Ivance, and on deck is Carrie Kittle.
Hi, like I said, my name is Carol Ivance, I live in Hudson. And I'm just wondering, are there rules in your home? Does anyone just take stuff from anyone's room, pee on the floor, leave the doors open, let anyone walk in whenever, move in, start telling you what to do in your own home, be able to shove you out the door but still be responsible to pay the bills? I'm serious. Would you have problems with any of that stuff? Why do we have laws in civilized societies? Why are people fleeing the countries and cities where lawlessness, especially in the so-called government, has taken over? Or aren't you aware that places like San Francisco, Portland, Chicago, even Minneapolis to an extent, have been allowed to degrade into literal hellholes where the police won't go because they themselves are targets? And then there's the other extreme, like the areas in Michigan and parts of Minneapolis and probably other places where these people have set up their own societies and instituted Sharia law instead of U.S. law. And I have nothing against Muslims. I have Muslim friends, but there are extremists. You know, there's extremists on the right, there are extremists on the left. I'm not trying to pick on any one society, but we have to be aware of these things. Does it concern you that U.S. law is not being followed in the case of this refugee resettlement program, like Congressman Tiffany pointed out? Why are they getting snuck into Eau Claire County? Are these people even in the U.S. legally? Are these families, or are they a bunch of military-aged men with weapons? And plenty of those have come across the border. It's funny how it's okay for them to have weapons, but I guess we're not supposed to anymore, even though 2A is part of the Constitution, or one of the amendments. Why not follow the long-established legal channels to resettle truly displaced peoples? And why are the 22 Arab nations refusing to take any of the Muslim refugees? We have plenty of refugees, like Mark pointed out, who've become productive, hardworking members of societies. They're more than welcome to come here. I have no problem with that. But this group and the entire situation surrounding their getting forced on us illegally does not fit the tried and true legal way to go about this. Plus, our tax money is being stolen to foot the bill. And please realize that if you think this is a good idea and you vote for it, wherever these folks end up, they won't have any gratitude for the people who opened the door and let them in. You'll get run over along with the rest of us. So if you're wearing rose-colored glasses, please take them off and look at reality and take care of us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, Gary Kittle. On deck, we have Tom Irwin.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the committee for having this forum so people can come and share their opinions. And I'd like to thank the full board for dealing with difficult things like this. I know that you're going to hear from other people who are going to point out that the resolution is outside the board's purpose and a waste of time. It's a federal issue. But I would just like to quote from the Refugee Act of 1980, the thing that the resolution seems to be based on. The objectives of this act are to provide a permanent and systematic procedure for the admission to this country of refugees of special humanitarian concern to the United States, and to provide comprehensive and uniform provisions for the effective resettlement and absorption of those refugees who are admitted. It's a structured plan. What that act did was to try and upgrade and improve what had been before, as we absorbed tons of waves of immigration from Southeast Asia and other places. When I think about the real nature of this kind of a resolution, I think it really is has a great deal to do with being a red meat issue designed to anger the base and to stimulate fundraising. You heard a lot of things about allegations about what immigrants do. This is a longer conversation for a separate venue, but virtually every wave of immigrants that's ever come to this country has improved the economy, they become taxpayers. Do some people slip through the cracks? I'm sure. But you can find a lot of evidence that suggests immigrants become, in a very short period of time, productive and contributing people to the economy, and state and local economies. Those folks spend money where they live. And then a while ago, and I appreciate the fact that we're kind of on point, because we've heard at least one speech which was sort of an anti-government diatribe. There were a lot of isms in there. The one that wasn't in there was Americanism. You hear a lot of conversations about language. I would submit that almost anybody in this room came from immigrant stock, if language mastery were a condition to be included in this country, they would have never got in. But their grandparents or great-grandparents or whoever worked hard, they became good citizens, and I think just simply assuming that everybody who's coming into this country is somehow a danger or a threat is wrong.
Thank you. Okay, Tom
Yeah, my
Irwin.
name is Tom Irwin, and I served 3 terms on the county board, so I'm familiar with what you're all doing. And I gave each of you this packet. It's about a 40-page packet. And this is the new warfare that we're in right now. We're in World War III, except the Americans have not figured that out yet. And I know you might think that, well, I'm a bit of a quack. But the U.S. government actually discovered this by accident in the early 90s. It was used in the Holy Land trials litigation. And what it does is lays out here very clearly what the plan is for the Muslim Brotherhood in this explanatory memorandum to take over the United States, to use our laws to take over the United States. How do they do that? They guide their people into each voting district one at a time. When they have a majority, then they vote their Islamic Muslims into power, and then they start replacing every government employee with an Islamic Muslim, and there you go, and they move on to the next one. And if you want to keep the wool pulled over your eyes about that, if you think what I'm saying is foolish, then all you need to do is look across the river right here. And we can go to a number of other communities. Minnesota's got several of them going right now, St. Cloud, Wilmer, and probably Owatonna next. And that's the system. They're using our laws and they're taking over. They have no intentions of using the Constitution. There's already a lot of Sharia law courts throughout the country, and that's their goal. They're not coming here to change their way of life, to have a better way of life, to assimilate. They're coming here instead to force us to assimilate to what they're doing. And if you look at the U.S. verbiage in the refugees, they don't even say assimilate. Instead of assimilate, they use the word integrate. Integrating people into your community is a lot different than assimilating. It's not like our great-grandparents when they came here. In addition to that, our great-grandparents, they had to have someone to take care of them when they came here. The government didn't stand at the border handing them things, taking care of them, paying for all of their needs, trying to dump all that cost on the taxpayers. They came in here they wanted to become Americans, and these people don't. Now you can say, well, they're not all bad, and I would agree with you. But we can go to World War II and talk about Nazi Germany too and say the majority of Germans are not bad people. They never would have gone out to murder 10,000 Christians and 7,000 Jewish people. But they're insignificant because they're not going to do anything to stop it. You don't have to look very far for crime waves taking place in the United States right now, and the best place to look would be over to Europe.
Thank you,
Because
sir.
they
That's 3 minutes.
are
Thank
the
you.
ones. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see, I didn't call the next person. I don't know, Matt Bachland, if you're in here. If not, yep, the next on deck will be Kay Haggerty.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for holding this tonight. For those who don't know, I was actually one of the original 4 organizers, along with some people in this room, who started this movement across what we call the 100-mile radius. What is happening is it affects 100 miles outside of Eau Claire. What that means is they were supposed to hold meetings with interest groups, county boards, city boards, schools, hospitals, and things like that. What we quickly realized by recovering 1,000 open record requests on this matter, this was done between 3 people in Eau Claire. It was signed by Stephanie Hirsch, who is not elected. Not elected. She signed a letter welcoming World Relief in. World Relief cannot tell us where the people are from for certainty. They can't tell us when. However, when we first started this process, we started at a VFW. Maybe about 150 people or so were there. We have stood in the rain. We have stood in the freezing cold. We've had the police and canines sit outside and watch our peaceful protests. We have peacefully went and told our piece at the county boards in the cities. This is taxation without representation. These are the good people of the 100-mile radius standing up and asking for a voice, asking for a seat at the table. They're coming to ask us for our dollars. In 1991, this program went bankrupt. In 1991, the federal government released any money that went to the states to support this. Between 1980 and 1991, the federal government was giving the states to support the schools, the food, the money in the pocket, the transportation, the translators. That's no more. World Relief only has to take care of these people for 90 days. Once the 90 days are up, it becomes us, the taxpayer. And the remittances that are leaving the United States every single year, Ron DeSantis mentioned this in debate twice, nobody listened to him. The remittances that are leaving the United States from the hard-working taxpayers. And before I actually end here, I just want to thank every single person who has stood up, has been part of this citizen-led activity. We were in the heart of Eau Claire and Chippewa. We just got a huge victory in Chippewa. It passed the executive board going next month for a vote, and I hope you show up. But we've had Democrats, we've had Republicans, we have independents, and we have people who've never voted standing with us. This is an American issue, and it's time for us to reclaim our rights and have our voice heard. We are the citizens, we are the government. When your government fails, you stand up.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please, everybody, thank you. Kay Hagerty, and following that will be William, sorry if I mispronounce this, Upfall. Hopefully you recognize I called your name.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, my name is Kay Hagerty, and I'm from Minnesota, lived in the Twin Cities for most of my life. My husband and I moved over here to the Hudson area about 15 years ago, and night and day for us, having lived there. And I'm going to I wanted to say a lot of what's already been said by the speakers ahead of me, especially Mark, because I grew up over there in the Twin Cities, and he mentioned the Hmong population, South Vietnamese, and all those people that came to the Twin Cities assimilated and contributed. And so the difference between the Muslim population coming in from various countries in the Middle East and the others is the huge difference is the lack of assimilation, because they want to be over here and have their system parallel to ours. And I can just address one thing in particular. Ilhan Omar, the representative in Congress now, came to Minnesota, and she was sworn in on the Koran and refused to follow the Constitution. And she did that in Minnesota, and I don't know how that ever happened, that she went to the congressional, to the federal level, and also got to serve there, because they refused to support the constitutional, the Sharia law is what they follow. And I got interested in this because over in the Twin Cities, it was in the 90s that they brought a whole lot of people from Somalia. They had been in Detroit. By the way, the Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, is a Muslim from Detroit, and so he was over here, and the Muslim population, the Somalis from Detroit, were brought to the Twin Cities and placed on West Bank of the U of M, where I went to school. And so that community was pretty much taken over. And, I could just go on and on about the Twin Cities and St. Cloud, those are the two communities I'm the most familiar with, that they have the call to prayer many times a day, and they're on loudspeakers, so no matter where you live, or where, if you want to be part of it or not, you don't get to choose, because the call to prayer is done. I could go on with many examples of that, but I'm almost out of time, but I just wanted to echo what a lot of the people were saying, and I'm so grateful to Matt and the others that are doing this, because at the point they're doing it at, you can make a difference to stop what has gone on in the other areas. And I've been following this issue for a long time, and everything, I want to just echo everything they said, is that I'm Norwegian. Trust me, this is not the way and I'm second generation Norwegian. This is not the way my people came to the country. Thank you.
Next, we have William Upfall, and then following that, Linda Hendricks.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing the public input on this very important matter this evening. I reside in Boyceville, Wisconsin, which is actually in Dunn County. And I'm here because this issue will affect me just like it affects you. We all fall within the 100-mile radius of the Eau Claire office. And I would just like to pose some open questions, not expecting an answer, just wanting you to ask yourselves these questions and dig into it. Have you read U.S. Code Section 1522? It is very clear. All of you were supposed to be involved in this process from the very beginning. Have any of you been contacted by World Relief or the director in Wisconsin or from the feds on this? If not, U.S. laws and codes are not being followed. Are we a nation of laws or are we not? I'll keep my comments pretty short. I hope you all also consider that Wisconsin is a home rule state. Please keep that in mind. And I want to also encourage you all to read, watch videos on the doctrine of lesser magistrates. Local government has a lot more power than what they know. And I would ask you all to have courage and stand up for the rule of law, because that is what this really boils down to. If the law is not being followed, that is taxation without representation. Because after 90 days, all of the costs associated, whether it's interpreters or translators or housing, the list goes on, schooling, policing, it all falls on our backs. So, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I really encourage you all to seriously take those questions and look into them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, can we please hold the applause, everybody? Thank you. Next up, Linda Hendricks, and following that will be Matthew Rust, I believe.
I am standing here today to ask you to please vote against this anti-refugee resettlement resolution. The resolution has nothing to do with the responsibilities of the county board and is a distraction from the work they should be doing. This is federal responsibility, not local. Refugees are carefully vetted before they gain entry into our country. I'm talking refugees. This resolution appears to be purposely misrepresenting refugees with illegal immigrants and other asylum seekers to create havoc and distrust, and feels very mean-spirited. My sister, who is currently in Ethiopia right now, is currently helping a female refugee become acclimated to America in the Chicago area. She is having very positive experiences with this young woman who now calls her mom. What is happening at the border is very distressing, especially in Texas. We need federal officials and Congress to work together to solve these issues. To work so hard to keep vetted refugees out of our community feels racist and creates fear and distrust of the new people who are trying to settle here. This resolution needs to be abandoned. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Matthew Rust, and following that, Lee Brown.
Thank you for having us here today. My name is Matthew Rust. I'm the current chairman of the Republican Party of St. Croix County. I just want to start off by saying that the Republican Party was founded for the sole reason of ending slavery in order to guarantee the constitutional rights to all Americans for freedom and liberty. But we all know that freedom is not free. Countless Americans have given their lives over the years to defend and guarantee the freedoms and liberties that we all currently now enjoy. But this, you know, our nation and our constitutional republic is something that's special and unique in the world. It's worth preserving, it's worth dying for, and people have done that. The problem with the refugee resettlement system is that it bypasses our current immigration system, which has been set up to make sure that anyone coming into this country is educated, they understand what it means to be an American, that they want to be Americans. It's a process and a system that's set up to preserve and protect what we have here in this country. So when you bring people in who don't go through that system, again, specifically designed to make sure people coming into our country understand and value what we have, then you get, it obviously leads to problems, right? You need to be educated to do certain things. In America, unlike a lot of other countries, authoritarian countries, you need to be educated on our system in order to participate in it and to perpetuate it, and to make sure that everybody has the rights and freedoms that we enjoy. So, again, allowing people into our communities who don't fully understand that will create problems. And so to preserve freedom and liberty, immigrants should be coming through our immigration system, not the refugee resettlement system, and not through an open border. I know they're not the same thing, but even our refugee system, I do believe it's unnecessary. I'm not sure exactly why it exists and why we have bought into it and are funding it as much as we are, but I would recommend that we do not support refugees coming into this.
Thank you for your comments. We have a lot of people. Thank you. Okay, up next we have Lee Brown, and following that, Sarah Bachland.
I'm Lee Brown. My wife and I live in St. Joseph Township, and I didn't prepare remarks, wish I had, but I am for legal immigration, and I am for the rule of law. So that's all that.
Okay, thank you. Sarah Bachland is next, and following that, Timothy Holden.
Hi, Troy, thank you. Ken, I just wanted to say that Darla Myers is waiting online. If you're able to call her, take her public comment. All right. So we've heard concerns of Sarah Bachland. I live in St. Croix County, in Troy Township. We've heard arguments saying that this county has no authority to pass a resolution like this. The World Relief, they work with local governments, so it is within your scope to pass this resolution. This is obviously not symbolic. If the World Relief is bringing this in to governments, you have the ability to agree to it or not. So it is not a symbolic resolution. We've heard that the people coming in are vetted. I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily trust that system that's set in place. If you look at, I have documentation on this, but if you look at the Burmese immigrants, or the refugees there, there was 1,700 people who came in under false premises. So they were falsifying their information when they came into the country. So it does happen. Questions I think we need to answer. Did World Relief follow the U.S. code? Did they follow the law in coordinating with local offices? This does affect our county because, as people have mentioned, it is within the 100-mile radius here in St. Croix County. Are we prepared for this continued influx of the resettlers? Refugees can bring over their family members as soon as they come. The Refugee Act dictates that benefits that refugees must receive include housing, furnishings, food allowance, clothing, pocket money, medical care, transportation, housing. Are we currently taking care of our citizens right now, especially our veterans? I don't know that we can handle this financial burden right now. If you're aware of Whitewater, with those police forces over there are overwhelmed. There's plenty of articles on that with the influx of the immigrants there. How can refugees be vetted? This is my last point. How can refugees be vetted from some foreign countries with no functioning government?
Thank you. 3 minutes. Thanks. Okay, so we have Timothy Holden, and then Mary McGurran, maybe?
I'd like to thank the county board for allowing me to speak tonight. My name's Tim Holden, and I'm from New Richmond, St. Croix County resident. And a lot of us come from our own experience, I realize. I have 3 kids fighting this war against Islam, 3 Marines, including my daughter, and I almost lost my oldest son. We tend to come from our own experience, and I'm thankful that we have this free meeting tonight, because this is for we the people, and that's what the Constitution teaches. Sometimes things are really hard to spit out. When I grew up, the society we lived in wasn't as open as we have now, like on social media. But I'm just going to mention this. I have a daughter, and some of you here are mothers, daughters, and you have granddaughters. And I worked in Minneapolis for 2 years, and this is a fact. The Somalian men still sexually mutilate their women, and this is common knowledge, and you can check me on that. So if you think Islam's compatible with the American way, that's delusional. And I'm not going to stop by, and after my dad almost died in Nazi Germany, and as some of you know, Islam is a form of Marxism. Karl Marx started communism, if you know your history. And I just want you to know I'm totally against this resettlement and vague and obscure way they're doing this. And I plead with you, if you have grandchildren, please really think about this. Have you studied Islam? They don't want our way of life. They want Sharia law, like was mentioned a couple times here. I worked in Minneapolis for 2 years. You just wouldn't believe it. Akub Ahmed, he was a Somalian I worked with. His brother came over here with him. We wined and dined him. Then he went back over to Somalia and the Middle East and shot at our soldiers. And when he came back, thankfully the FBI arrested him. And you can check my facts on that. His brother's name, Akub Ahmed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mary McCurran, and following that, Michael Hansen.
Good evening, my name is Mary McGurran. I live in St. Croix County in the village of New Hudson. And I would like to just say that I appreciate that what you're grappling with here. And I would ask respectfully that you do not move this forward to the full board, or that if you do, that it is voted against. Refugees are here legally. There's nothing that we can do on a county level to stop refugees from being here. The United States allows freedom of movement for people here. People can settle where they choose. Yes, they have sponsors through a Christian organization in the Chippewa Valley, and the Christian organization who's sponsoring them has identified there's 75 people, possibly 20 family units. Those are the facts. And yes, they don't have the information about when they're coming. They have posted a lot of FAQs online if anyone is interested in getting more information. And the population, 75 people, is 0.007% of this area. So this is not anything to be afraid of. And I have to say that as a mother, a grandmother, a person who has lived in Minneapolis, who has family in Minneapolis, who also has family in St. Croix County, and I also live in St. Croix County now, that the people that I know that are refugees and immigrants are good people. It pains me to think of the things that are being said about good people tonight being painted with such a broad brush. And I apologize to anyone who's listening here that is a resident of St. Croix County, that is a refugee or an immigrant, because that expression here does not reflect everyone in our community. And I would please ask the board to show the compassion and goodness and American spirit that we have here, and to also act within your authority as a county board instead of the federal government business. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, Michael Hansen, and on deck, Chris Babbitt.
Hello, I'm Michael, and I'm a resident of St. Croix County, and specifically, but I'm also a college student. So for part of the year, I'm actually a resident of Eau Claire. And as a resident of Eau Claire for the past 4 months, I find it a surprise that we've been blindsided by this refugee crisis. I was reading about this in October. This was started in the spring. There was no surprise here, we know, because they went through the right parameters. So that's the first of Representative Tiffany's point, which I specifically want to address. Second one, Afghans at Fort McCoy, they were vetted for the Department of Homeland Security. And so they're fine. And they're also in a fort, so if we're talking about security, they're good. The third point, we don't even have any resettlement agencies in St. Croix County. If they're going to put them anywhere in this so-called 100-mile radius, they're not going to put them here because we don't have anywhere, we don't have logistics. So that point is moot as well. And I appreciate Mr. Tiffany's input, but I'd also ask him, as a federal representative, to focus on maybe, I don't know, funding the government, because that doesn't happen a bit. What I've seen in these past, hour, 50 minutes, has made me disappointed to reside here. For the man who said that we should think of our grandkids, or you all should think of your grandkids, when thinking about Islam, I'll tell you what I think. Islam is fine. I go to school with Muslims, and they don't kill me. I'm here, I'm alive, I'm friends with them. Sorry if I seem angry, but I am, because this is not how we should act. This is an issue, but it is not an issue that has to be waged with anger and hate and conspiracy. Maybe it's because I'm a member of New Generation, that could be true, I don't know. I mean, I had all these extra remarks about the resolution, the law, but it's clear that this is simply a proxy battle for those who have everything to brute force stomp down those who have nothing.
That's simply disgraceful. I want to end with one last point for the first comments here of our Carlson. And a word that's been used a lot tonight, assimilation. Assimilation is a word that has a long history too. Native Americans, they were assimilated through boarding schools. I think it's high time, using the words of Hubert Humphrey, one of the greatest Americans to serve in office here, that we step out from the shadows of assimilation into the bright sunshine of inclusion, of tolerance, and of humanity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up, Chris Babbitt, and then on deck, Robert Zeck. C-I-Z-E-K?
Thank you very much for giving all of us time tonight to express our support or our concerns about the resolution. My name is Chris Babbitt. I've lived here in St. Croix County for 34 years, specifically in Hudson. I've also had the distinct privilege of serving on this board for 4 years as Chair of Health and Human Services, working with Chair Long and others who are still here today. When an issue came before the board back in my tenure between 2014 and 2018, being new to working in government, I said to myself, if I'm going to vote on something that comes before this board, I better understand it. I better have some sense of why this is being brought forward, how people feel about it, what their views are. And believe me, some of the issues that come before the county board are extremely complicated. And this is one of those. As I listen to the commentary tonight, one of the things that stands out for me is that we seem to be now making a distinction between certain immigrants or certain resettlement individuals as opposed to others. So for example, in St. Paul, the Hmong population, A-OK. Somalis, not so much. I don't want to be a part of a system that picks and chooses who may come, who is okay, who's not okay. We either are all right with the program and no matter where you come from, you're welcome here, or we're not okay with the program, but we can't have it both ways. We can't say one group of individuals is fine and another group is not. It seems to me that that creates all kinds of problems. Very quickly, in 2017, a member of the county board floated an idea about making St. Croix County a sanctuary county for immigrants. He wanted the county board to pass a similar resolution, only on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, saying that St. Croix County would open its doors to refugees that came across our borders to be here. That ordinance, as most of you may know, or I'm here to let you know, did not get out of committee. And the reason it didn't get out of committee, despite the fact that many of us thought we should at least talk about the issue, was that we agreed at that time this was just not a county board issue. It doesn't mean it's not an issue we should be concerned about or an issue we should talk about, but not something primarily for the county board to decide. This resolution admittedly is on the opposite side of that one, but even a pro-immigration resolution and proposal that came up at that time didn't make it out of committee for the same reason I think this one should not as well. I agree with much of what the young man said here before us, and one piece of that again is
Sir,
the fact
sorry,
that,
3 minutes. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, next up, Robert, and then following that, Paul Hambleton.
Thank you, Board, for the privilege of speaking a few minutes about this refugee resettlement. My name is Bob Cizik, and I'm from North Hudson. I'm opposed to the refugee resettlement, and I would like to see this resolution pass through committee and the board, the full board, vote that we're against this. And the reasons is I'm a former resident of the Rice Lake area, and I grew up knowing the city of Barron very well. Well, what happened during the city of Barron. They brought in a bunch of Somalis. The Somalis basically roamed the city. As a result of their influx, housing prices went way down. The school district had major problems. They built a brand new jail, government center, just north of town. I forget how many millions, but anyway, before I left the county in 2014, the jail was full of Somalis. I was talking to one of the jailers, and he said, yeah, he says, that's all we do all day long is just deal with these Somali people. There's not enough room in the brand new jail that basically, I don't know, doubled the capacity of the old one to support these people. It just caused a lot of problems. Lastly, I used to take my kids to this park in Barron. It's right alongside the little river. They like to play there and swim. Well, we had to stop doing that. I felt threatened, not only for myself, but for the children. There was groups of Somali men just roaming around the park, and they didn't look friendly, they didn't act friendly, so we quit going there. This is a public park. So anyway, to sum it up, I'm against this Somali refugee resettlement, and I would like to see the board approve this resolution. It not only affects St. Croix County, but it affects all the surrounding counties within a 100-mile radius of Eau Claire. It's an important issue, and I would hate to see that, sure, 75 to start with, but there's like 3,000 in the works. So we need to stop it in its tracks. Thank you for your cooperation.
All right, thank you. Next up, Paul Hambleton, and then following that, Sue Curtis.
Thank you, supervisors, and thank the whole county board for providing this opportunity to speak. My comments are around this resolution objecting to refugee settlement, and I think you should not pass this resolution. Let me explain why. The Refugee Act of 1980 defines a refugee as an individual that meets very specific criteria and requirements before entering the country. Such refugees have the right to travel, work, and live, just as we citizens do. We've heard there have been some problems with that. Okay, there have been problems with that, but they can come and go, they can come and settle here. There's nothing we can say. Maybe you don't like Somali. Maybe you don't like white people. Maybe you don't like somebody. It doesn't mean you can tell them they can't live here. And under this act, also, the St. Croix Board, County Board, has no authority or decision-making power to limit these individuals. It's a completely symbolic resolution, obviously designed to raise some questions about immigration. But the Refugee Resettlement Program is a highly structured, rigorous process in which refugees are thoroughly vetted prior to acceptance. Those admitted are resettled in pre-approved refugee programs around the country. St. Croix County churches and other organizations and individuals have been involved in helping refugees under this program. The number of refugees settled is determined each year through the Office of President, as it has been for many years. In 2024, the number is set at 125,000 to be resettled somewhere in the United States in this entire year. Last year, Ukrainian refugee families, it was in the Star Observer, started their journey, their settlement journey, right here in St. Croix County. I'm very concerned that the act of passing this symbolic resolution could result in prejudice and potentially violence. St. Croix County is home to Hispanic, Hmong, African, and others who arrived and settled here over the past several decades. They are our neighbors. They are our friends. And in some cases, in my case, they are our family. Many are now U.S. citizens. Wisconsin agricultural, construction, manufacturing businesses rely on the labor of many immigrants. Are we going to object to that as well? The southern border troubles have been a very hot potato for several years under different Congresses and administrations. This symbolic resolution has nothing to do with the southern border.
Thank you, sir, for 3 minutes. Thank you.
Urge you not to pass it. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Sue Curtis, and on deck, Celeste Hobo.
Thank you for hearing all of us out today. Please reject this resolution and any form of it to follow. I specifically object to the lines 27 through 47. What I've been hearing, or what this sounds like to me, is that we don't want outsiders here, especially people that are different than us. This statement alone is enough for us, this committee, to reject that. It portrays our county as unwelcoming and hateful, and it may even backfire and cause the very people who they want to attract from moving into and doing business in our county. It appears that a couple supervisors are using this nonpartisan board to share and garner support for their personal partisan views and perspectives. In my opinion, they are receiving suggestions from others outside the county board whose intent is not to conduct county business, but to misuse this platform for political purposes. We've seen it tonight. And to extend their own fears and conspiracies. This resolution can really be a slippery slope of exclusion and discrimination. What's next? A resolution against the homeless? Or how about those who use addiction and mental health services? These individuals use extensive county services, and it's needed. Imagine excluding and restricting individuals because of the potential services that they may need. This would be horrible. As it stands now, any new resident would need to qualify for services just as any other resident, including a refugee. Additionally, my tax dollars have now been spent on unnecessary legal fees and administrative hours, and your time. The last paragraph of this resolution allocates infinite amount of tax dollars for litigation to support and to join other counties. Does that include all counties in the state? Milwaukee and Dane, are they included? This would be extremely costly and at the expense of needed county services such as public safety, court and justice, health and human services. Please do not spend any of my tax dollars to create these outlandish resolutions or fund uncapped dollars for litigation that in the end really have no effect except to waste valuable time and resources. Lastly, this is not the venue for addressing a larger, complex issue of immigration. This is a role for our Congress, and they need to work on that. Our representatives must work together to solve a very complicated issue. It's time that we do that nationally and locally. The authors of this resolution need to go through the proper channels for change and not use local, nonpartisan boards with already strained budgets. Lastly, to prevent this happening again, please adopt a process to vet these ineffective resolutions in the future.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Celeste, and then John Gostovich.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Celeste Coverall. I have submitted written public comments previously to the members of this committee and to the whole board, and I ask that those be entered into the record. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've heard here today. First of all, there's a great deal of confusion here. As Paul Hamilton pointed out, refugee is a specific category of people who may enter the United States. It is defined by federal law. Our U.S. Constitution and our U.S. Supreme Court, in interpreting our U.S. Constitution, has established that the jurisdiction over immigration matters is exclusively that of our federal government. It is not the business of the St. Croix County government. The Refugee Resettlement Act that's been referred to here and is the subject of this resolution is exactly what many people here who have said they don't want to get any refugees, is what they've been asking for. They said they want the rule of law. They said they want regulation. They said they wanted an end to chaos. That is exactly what the Refugee Resettlement Act provides for all of us. As has been pointed out, no more than 125,000 individuals currently may be admitted through the Refugee Resettlement Act to the United States in any one fiscal year. In 2024, the Biden administration has directed that most of those refugees should come from Western Europe. Who are we afraid of? What is our experience with refugees resettled in St. Croix County? In 2022, it was 2 families of Ukrainian refugees who fled Russia's war and completely inappropriate and illegal attack and destruction on the country of Ukraine. Is that who we're afraid of? I don't think so. People have said, well, my great-grandparents came here and nobody helped them. I stand here before you as the descendant of Norwegians, Swedes, Germans, Irish, English. My aunts have traced our genealogy back to people who came to this country in the 1600s. But we're all immigrants. And did we get handouts? Why, yes, we did. Some of my great-grandparents got 160 acres of prime farmland in the Midwest. That's worth quite a bit today. It launched my family to be very successful, profitable farmers. Yes, we should help each other. We have helped each other in the past. Many of the people who are here probably consider themselves Christians. I can cite 22 Bible verses directing Christians to welcome the immigrant. Perhaps some of you remember some of them. Welcome the stranger in your land, for I was once a stranger here, and even as you have done unto the least of these, so you have done unto me. Our board should reject this resolution because it is not the county's business, because it is a very well-managed program, and if you bothered to get the facts, you would find out that people are in fact vetted, and also it is the correct and moral thing to do, is to welcome the stranger in our land.
Thank you. All right, up next we have John Gostovich and then Alex Spalding.
My name is John Gostovich. I live in the town of Hudson. And I'm feeling really sad tonight listening to my neighbors express a lot of fear about people who are different. And I think of my grandfather who came here from Yugoslavia to mine coal with Mexican people in the state of New Mexico. Never got a dime from any federal government agency, never learned to speak English, but he was a coal miner. Never caused any trouble, never went to jail. I look around this room, surrounded by mostly men, look to be by and large people who work for a living. Not attorneys, not big shots, not billionaires. But they are fearful of people who look different, who speak different languages, who may take something from them when so much has already been taken from them and given to the ruling classes of our country. Yeah, people take advantage of you guys. But it's not Somali people, it's not Mexican people, it's not black people, it's not people who speak a different language. God knows it's not Muslim people. You need to express some grace and some Christian love for people who have even less than you have. Because they look to us for help, for brotherhood, for sisterhood, for decency, to take care of them and their children. And as Americans, we are called to do that. As Christians, we are called to do that. The least of these. Get out of this rabbit hole about this handful of refugees You know, Tom Tiffany has no idea where they're coming from, so he tells us stories that are irrelevant about Afghan people that came to America some years ago. Don't listen to him. Listen to Jesus and try to do the right thing for people that really could use your help, your support, your love, your respect, your understanding, your care. You're decent people, and this is an opportunity to behave that way. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Alec Spalding, or Spalding, sorry, I can't tell which one it is.
Alex Spalding.
Spalding. All right, Alex Spalding. And following that, we have Bonnie Christensen.
Thanks, committee. Thanks, citizens. It's tough, all right, to come up with these answers. But I have to say that there are some dangers out there, okay? I'm not saying that all immigrants, okay? I have a family full of immigrants. My sister is a doctor. She married a guy from India. So I have a lot of experience. I spent a lot of time in the Twin Cities. I live in St. Croix County now. Now, tonight, all of us got vetted, okay? And for good reason. Come through the doors there, we got checked, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. Do you think everyone is getting vetted all the time? No, I'm not saying that of course there are good stories, of course there are. But there is a threat. There are threats that exist. And do you think that they're not coming in with some agendas? If you don't think that some are on a different wavelength than you are, that doesn't mean that you're afraid of them. That just means that it's a concern. If you don't have that concern, and Mr. Holden is right, that is something that you can look up on your own. There are individuals out there who will burn the genitalia of their bride so they cannot have a normal sexual experience. If you call me afraid of that, then so be it. But that angers me. I don't think anyone should have to go through something like that. And again, don't take my word for it. Don't take Mr. Holden's word for it. Look it up. It's easy. You don't have to look too far to find out these true things. And it's in the Surah, it's in the Quran. If you do not comply, they're coming after you. And they don't take, and again, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I don't hate them. That's the difference. That's I don't hate anybody. I love them. I want them happy. But I think we have rights to defend ourselves here. That's all. And again, to just passively say everybody's going to be great and everybody's going to, I wish that were the case. I'd love to walk in here and tell you that. But with all due respect, that's just reckless passivity. You aren't looking at the facts, and maybe you don't want to look at the facts. I don't want to look at the facts. But I would urge you to do so. And unfortunately, you have to dig a little harder to get them today. That's all.
Please hold your applause. Thank you. Next up, we have Bonnie Christensen and then Scott Miller.
I came today from Chippewa Falls to help you realize your dreams. Your dreams may include helping everyone with everything they need. This dream can morph into a nightmare as you try to provide everything to everyone. Immigrants at the turn of the century came, but were not always admitted. They received no government help, pulling themselves out of poverty by working with true grit. As a grade schooler, we began the day, hand over heart, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to our country. One nation, under God, indivisible, God, not Allah. Muslims cannot say the pledge as they consider it worship of a flag. It is blasphemy to them. Muslims cannot swear allegiance to America or even follow our Constitution. They can legally only follow Sharia law as stated in the Quran. The Quran lays out the entire legal system for Muslims. They have no choice to follow anything but Sharia, or they themselves will be subject to Sharia, which would call for their punishment up to and including death. We are now a divided nation, divided intentionally by our very government. Obama's promise to fundamentally change America is in the process of happening under our watch. We must stand up for our rights as a republic according to our Constitution. Muslim refugees use our laws against us to advance their desire and plan to infiltrate all aspects of our American way of life. We are infidels. Because we are infidels, Muslims cannot assimilate in America. Sharia law forbids it. A Milwaukee imam just called for jihad against Jews in America last week. Another one called for jihad from the St. Paul Capitol building steps last month. He was allowed to speak this treason because he has a right to free speech. As an acupuncturist working in Edina, Minnesota, half of our patients were Somali. I can state that I have personal experience. I made house calls to a Minnesota-built apartment complex for Somali refugees. Their TV is on. No soap operas, no game shows. They follow an imam sitting there on the floor, speaking Arabic, reading from the Quran. Jihad could be called for in every Muslim living room in an instant via TV. You are St. Croix County. You are the western wall of Wisconsin due to bridges and such. I implore you to not let the government delude you into a false sense of security when they tell you to accept refugees that cannot assimilate and have no desire to do so. We are infidels, subject to being subjugated by them. Do not be deceived. The federal government covers their expenses for 90 days. The county takes over after that. I want you to know, I have done a lot of research on this whole situation. 85% of Somalis cannot read or write.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. 3 minutes. Okay, next we have Scott Miller, and following that, Christina Haberman.
Thanks for giving us this open discussion time today. It's very important to our future of this country because we don't get to do that in some venues, so I do appreciate that. I've been listening to more board meetings, and whether it be here or municipalities, and all I hear is pleas for cash, right? Just like most people in society, we plead for cash because we're being drained dry by taxes that are then being wasted by our federal government. But the people who are opposed to this resolution believe that our federal government is the solution to our problem and going to fix our country or let refugees in and vet them. I mean, the only way we're going to turn this country around is by local boards, local people coming together, making common sense decisions for our communities. Our founding fathers seen us, we in this room, the people in every other boardroom locally should have the most control over our lives. They didn't see our federal government taxing the shit out of everybody and then handing it out if they feel that you're up for it. That's what we lived through. I mean, I've listened to these board meetings where it's like, we don't have money, but somehow our federal government, is doling it out if they feel you fit the bill. And that's on both sides of the aisle. So the fact that we believe our federal government at this point is got our best interests in mind is a fallacy. And you may not believe what I'm saying, but it's probably because you're listening to the propaganda media, which is just an arm of our big corporations and our government. So I'm asking our county board to, let's put this resolution out there. Part of the problem that I see with this resolution that gets everybody riled up has nothing to do with Muslim, black, white, pink, orange, LGBTQ. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that we can't follow our laws when we implement stuff like this everything's a little secret, but we think we should be able to ram it through at the end of the day. So that's why everybody's here. We're tired of it. We're really, really tired of nobody following laws, and then you watch people break them that are in our government, in our higher ranks of our corporations, you know, and then nothing happens to them. So we just want the laws to be followed, and we want our local government to come back to power and take our federal government down where it belongs. There's only about 5 things that they should be controlling, and we need to get back to that. Thank you for the time.
All right, thank you. Next up, Christina Haberman. And that is the last public comment I have, so, oh, sorry, Darla's on the phone. All right, Darla Myers will be after that.
Good evening, Board. I'm a member of this county, and I live out in Roberts, and I just want to say to you guys, I'm appreciative that we the people can come together to reason together. Reason together. It's not about any one of us being perfectly right. None of us are. All of us are doing our best, I think. However, when we can't reason together, as Scott said, because the laws aren't being followed, when we have to fight to have time to speak to those that we have voted in, that's a problem. It's a major problem. But the problem isn't going to be fixed by more government or the people in the government. We are the government. I was given this right by the people who shed their blood for it. I was given the right to eternal life by the one who shed his blood for me. And I take these rights seriously because it's my duty, it's my responsibility. And if I don't do it, I can't blame anyone else. If I do it, and the wrong things are done, I've at least done my job. I've spoken my thoughts. I've spoken what I think to be the right thing to do. But my concern is that we can't seem to even reason together as a people. Reasoning means that we use logic, we use our intelligence, we do our research, and we do our best to limit our own personal bias. We all have it. Okay? The first step to solving a problem is admitting there is one. This is a problem. We have a problem because we can't have a dialogue on this without someone being called racist. I stand before you, a person with mixed heritage. You look at me because, like I'm white. I'm not. That's just because by the time my generation came along, the dark complexion was mostly gone. But I'm not white. I have ancestry that had to hide their heritage because the men couldn't get work. I have ancestry who was murdered by big corporations because they were allowed to dump illegal chemicals into rivers, and my people ate the fish, and they died. Was anything done? No. We have to reason together as people because our laws demand it, and we the people have to stand up and demand it, and that's what I see happening. We have to have a public discourse. We have to have public dialogue. This isn't about a race. This is about a culture and a belief system that is absolutely anti everything this nation was founded on. I have friends in this group. I know people in this group. Not everyone is a bad person. Not all Christians follow the Bible to its letter. Okay? Guilty. I try. But if you don't look at the Quran and you don't understand the actual principles that many people do follow and take very seriously, then that's foolishness. And we can't reason together as a people if we aren't willing to look at things for what they are.
All right, thank you. We have one person that asked to call in.
To the voicemail of Darla Myers, please leave a message. May God bless you. Bye-bye.
Hi, Darla.
Hi, Darla.
At the tone, please record your message. When you finish recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options. To leave a callback number, press 5.
Hi Darla, this is your friendly county administrator calling for public comment. Sorry we missed you, but I'm sure you'll get another chance. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other public comment? We've had a lot.
I'd like to talk again for a minute.
We're just gonna do just one public comment per person.
I think that's not legal. I think anybody should be able to stand up and talk.
Sir, you had a chance to talk already.
I don't care if I had one chance, I want another.
As
And
a-
anybody else can have another.
As the chair of the committee, it's my decision. So we heard your comments and I appreciate them, but we have business to
This is not
go
allowed.
through.
A public meeting is for people to stand up and talk. So anybody should be able to talk again.
They have business to do. Let's let them.
This is how this stuff gets rammed through.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on from public comment. We'll close public comment. And then we will go to our first agenda item. And so given all the folks that are here today, we're going to move agenda item number 2 up to business item number 1 for our sake of people that are here. And so I'm going to, and then item number 2, which now is item number 1, will be a resolution objecting to refugee resettlement under the Refugee Act of 1980 within the county of St. Croix, Wisconsin. So I'm going to ask Supervisor Lind, who proposed the resolution, to come up first and provide her background on this, and then the committee will have a discussion. Supervisor Lind.
Thank you for the opportunity to bring and speak to this very important objection to refugee resettlement. For everything in this great land of ours requires a plan, an action, and a reaction. I have lived in beautiful St. Croix County for over 20 years. This county prides itself on betterment. We desire beautiful parks, smooth roads, safety, low taxes, and that will keep most people at least somewhat happy. The board just completed the budget for 2024 and the wish list is high end, and the list of things we had to say no to was long. Health and Human Services is in need of more staff to meet the increasing needs for assistance with housing, health, mental health, those with addictions, financial challenges, and these are for our current citizen needs. How about if everyone desiring an influx of people in our county start tomorrow by picking up one family from Grace Place, United Way, Our Neighbors, or Operation Help, and feed, clothe, house, transport, and provide health care for them for the next week. It's the right thing to do to care for those that need a hand up. But realistically, how would another family added to your home and personal budget impact you? What do you believe would be the impact to the city or the entire county for 75 families? I've been told this objection has nothing to do with public safety, infrastructure, or taxes, and is a waste of time. Our neighbors in Minneapolis made the decision to accept refugees starting in 1992. One small decision, and 30 years later, communities are unrecognizable. Has anyone here been to Minneapolis in the last 2 to 5 years? Yes. The Orpheum Theater, Twins, and Viking stadiums all require armed security. The Target headquarters has been in Minneapolis since 1960, and they just recently called it quits. The major crime, filth, and disrepair have forever changed the landscape and visitors to a once robust metropolis. I implore you to find even one day without a murder, robbery, theft, or carjacking in Minneapolis. July 4th, 2023 was mayhem in Minneapolis when a mob of people used large fireworks and pointed and deployed them at law enforcement, cars, and citizens. This group of individuals set the previously called Lake Calhoun Marina, and many of the boats docked there on fire. In this, there was plan, action, and then reaction. Hennepin County has 585 sworn-in officers and cannot answer every call. There are car accident scenes that are no longer attended by law enforcement if nobody is hurt or dead. In November of 2023, Minneapolis had 7 school shootings in less than 24 hours, leaving several injured or dead. Is this what we desire for our county? Hudson Police Department has 28 full-time sworn-in officers. There are some smaller departments in a few of the communities. St. Croix County Sheriff patrols over 730 square miles. This division consists of a collection of 46 who patrol the highways, respond to 911 and non-emergency calls with current requests for increased staff. This resettlement is not about our feelings or politics. This is where we fight against the 100-mile radius plan from Eau Claire, made up of backroom plans, and we just take first level action. We do that today. Where do we want this county to be in 2, 5, 10, 20 years? Please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Lind. Okay, we're to the agenda item now. So, discussion among the committee. Supervisor Long.
Yeah, to start out the discussion, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. I would like to move to postpone indefinitely the consideration of this resolution based on the condition, however, that the county administrator and or corporation counsel will be charged with or tasked with identifying and or establishing the proper communication network such that we can proactively communicate in the county if and when the issue becomes an actual issue in the county, so that everyone can be communicated with and the community at large can then decide the appropriateness or any action that needs to be taken. And I'm happy to expand on that, assuming there's a second.
All right, Supervisor Long has made a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Supervisor Fiedler?
Did we need a second to Supervisor Lynn's initial proposal? No.
No.
So she had, okay, so but Supervisor Long's motion is the only motion on the table?
Correct.
I'll second it.
All right, motion by Supervisor Long, second by Supervisor Fiedler. Supervisor Long, would you like to offer further?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to say I really appreciate all the comments that have been made here tonight. I totally respect and appreciate your opinions and your compassion in particular. So I just want to make some comments and try to explain my strategy in terms of conditioning this motion. So bear with me, I'll try to be concise. Let me talk about the actual resolution in and by itself. Okay, basically I've read this many times. There's nothing in it about a pause, by the way. But basically what it says is we object. We object to what? Nothing's really happening in the county right now, so there's really nothing to object to. And then the objection is based on the fact that a resettlement would adversely impact the quality of life in the county. Well, we don't know that, because we have no information on what the resettlement would be. Okay, we need information. So in essence, my opinion is the resolution is essentially meaningless because it has no impact whatsoever on the county. It is symbolic, and as many of you know, I've made a point to try not to get symbolic resolutions to the county board because we have a lot of critical things we need to be working on. We have, Dr. Golly just mentioned last week, or at the last board meeting, about the incredible increase in fentanyl in the county. That's critical. We have a lot of mental health issues that we're dealing with that we really need to focus on. So this is basically a distraction. But let's talk about the information that we need to make decisions as a community, okay? We don't have any information right now on what the possible resettlement might be. We need to know how many people are going to be involved. Is it a dozen, or a couple hundred, or a couple thousand? Where are they coming from? Are the kids involved? What are their needs? Are there any particular medical needs that they might have? Are there language barriers? There's a whole litany of information that we need in order to make the right decision as a community as to whether or not it's going to be appropriate for us. We heard examples tonight of resettlements that have worked out really well. Okay, we might, and I'd like to think as compassionate human beings, that we would consider at least looking at the information to decide is it appropriate or not. And there may be other situations where we'll look at the information and we'll go, you know what, this is really a bad idea. And we can't let it happen. We need to pull the plug on that. But we need to, first of all, we need the information, and then we need to bring everybody to the table and decide as a community what's going to be best for us. And the information starts at the communication. So in order to get the information, we need to make sure that the communication network is in place so that everybody who's communicated with municipalities, all of our law enforcement, our faith community, everybody involved, so that we have the information and we can make good, sound, logical, well-informed decisions based to the benefit of the community. The resolution, basically, whether it adversely impacts the county, it's a conjecture. We have an obligation to make decisions based on good, sound information and facts. So what I'm proposing as an alternate suggestion is, rather than just have a piece of paper that says we object, if you want to do something, let's do something. Do something by making sure that the communication network is in place so that we will know up front if anything's going to happen or if anything's going to be proposed. And we won't get caught like our poor friends in Eau Claire. And we will be able to address the situation up front when it becomes an issue at that time, so we can decide as a community what's appropriate and whether or not it will work for us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Supervisor Long. Other comments? Supervisor Fiedler.
I don't want to take too much time either, but I am going to review a couple of things. I thought, first of all, that the speakers today on both sides of this question were just outstanding in their thoughtfulness, the way they were eloquent, they were heartfelt, and I really appreciate it. That's what we're all about here at the county. I also like to praise Supervisor Lynn for bringing this to everybody's attention and making, because it's the big issue in America today, is immigration. Now, that's different from refugee settlement in St. Croix County, but immigration is the #1 issue in America. There's no question about that. And we see a lot of bad things happening all over the country as a result of the illegal immigration that's going on. So we all have to accept that and the dangers of that. And it's huge, it's vital. I think Heather McDonald made the quote that if you replace the people of the culture today, is it going to be the same culture for your grandchildren? Well, obviously it's not. It's going to be a whole different world. Somebody made reference to that during the public comments. Dr. Babin made some very good comments about the history of this board and how it treated sanctuary county status. That was a very, I'm going to call it a liberal board back in those days. And they took the position, no, even though they might personally feel they wanted to welcome refugees, they said, no, it's not county business. So it was a good example. Tom Irvin brought up some very interesting things and handed out a distribution. I don't know if the audience got it or not, but it was a piece that is labeled "From the Archives of the Muslim Brotherhood of America." And it's a statement by the Muslim Brotherhood about their positions. Okay? And Tom represented them correctly when he spoke. The first 2 pages of that are an introductory letter. It's attached to those statements of the Muslim Brotherhood. by a fellow named Frank Gaffney, who heads the Center for Security Policy in Washington, D.C. I'm going to be a name dropper here, but I was a good friend of Frank Gaffney's. I am a good friend of Frank Gaffney's. I've worked closely with the Center for Security Policy. I've had Frank on programs that I've put on. He put on 1,000 national security programs in another life, and Frank was a frequent speaker on my programs. I heartily endorse every single thing Frank Gaffney has said about the problems of Sharia and the followers of fundamentalist Sharia. Doesn't cover everybody in the Islamic faith, but it is their guiding document. Okay, we have to recognize that, no matter what position we take on this. I had a couple hats during life. One was a civilian hat, one was a military hat. In my military life, I was first exposed, I think Mark Carlson, Supervisor Carlson, talked about the good experience with Hmong in the Twin Cities. I first started out with helping the refugees from Vietnam, because that was my military specialty became somewhat dealing with refugees, not somewhat, totally dealing with refugees. And I was a representative of the 82nd Airborne Division for 6 years. I was a displaced persons and refugees officer for them. First Gulf War, Desert Storm, I guess we should call it. I was a legal officer for something called the Kuwait Task Force. My specialty in life was the Middle East. It was Sharia law. Believe me, it is not good for us. So I concur with everybody's statement who commented about Sharia and the impact of Sharia on us. It is not good, period. But, and following my time in, I'll say, southern Iraq and Kuwait, I was actually called from my CENTCOM position to a EUCOM position, European Command position, to deal with 500,000 refugees in northern Iraq that Saddam Hussein was killing. I spent another 2 months trying to save their lives, and we succeeded. We had a few deaths, but we saved 500,000 Kurds that Saddam was trying to poison. So I've lived refugees for a good deal of my life, seen the pros and cons of them, know the ins and outs of what they can bring to a community. A couple years ago, I was in Eau Claire at an economic development conference. One of the things we've heard at our board is, in Wisconsin, we're losing our demographics. We're losing people. We're going to be 130,000 people short of jobs needed in Wisconsin to be viable by 2030. 130,000 short. And my comment to that group was, this is right after the Russians had invaded Ukraine, I said, what about refugees from Ukraine? Okay. They fit our demographic to a T. They're bright. They love America. They would be the most patriotic people you've ever seen in your life. And another part of my life, I spent in Eastern and Central Europe, and somebody from here was from Yugoslavia, and I'm every single young person I met from Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia, Montenegro, all the places that were the former Yugoslavia, the thing they wanted to do most in life was come to America and be free like Americans. This was their hope in life, Romania. In fact, I brought a young lady from America to the United States as part of a student transfer program, student program. And when I first met her, long story, I won't go into, but I was at dinner with her and a 17-year-old lady, and her mother, and I asked the young lady what was her wish in life. She was to come to America, to study, to learn about America. And that's the attitude of so many people from, I'm going to say, Western civilization. They would be great additions to St. Croix County. But some people, I think, wouldn't be. I pretty much noted that. I'm going to leave it at that. And it's a tough decision we've got. I think Supervisor Long has made a very good motion to effectively pause what we're doing, as Congressman Tiffany suggested we might want to do, while we establish good lines of communication, make people aware of the pros and cons of this, let people know that there are issues. We have fiscal issues for sure, as Supervisor Lynn brought up. We've got to take care of our own people. But maybe the resolution is a little bit too direct in what we do, but certainly we should be very aggressive if this becomes more of a certain event or a likely event, and maybe we'll take action on the various resolve clauses that are part of this resolution at the proper time. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fiedler. I just want to make a few comments here and start out also by thanking everybody who took the time to be here tonight. And we've been here a while. I really felt it was important to let everybody have a chance to share their thoughts. So thank you for doing that. Just a couple comments tonight. I've heard a lot, I think, about the rule of law and how important it is. I agree, the rule of law is very important. But we're talking about the Refugee Resettlement Act. That is the current federal law. And so I definitely feel that local government is a super important place actually to share your thoughts and be proactive. But I think this resolution is really addressing a federal law that is outside of our purview as a county. So I would encourage folks, if you have a concern about the federal law, to definitely talk to your federal representatives and communicate that to them, because that's really where some of the platform is. We have heard a lot of comments tonight about Islam and just related to kind of perspectives or information about that religion. And I have to be honest, that concerns me a little bit. Our country was founded by folks who are looking for freedom of religion. And I think that's a very important thing, freedom of religion. But that doesn't say which religion freedom of religion is freedom of religion. So I'm a little concerned when we're talking about refugees that the blanket statements were based on disagreement with a religion, which everyone has, of course, their right to disagree with certain religions. But that was concerning a little bit to me. And also, to be honest, I just feel like this resolution just feels wrong to me as an American. A lot of us came here as refugees. I know it's been mentioned tonight, our ancestors came here as refugees. And I think, I don't have the exact wording, but I'm pretty sure on the Statue of Liberty, which is a major symbol for our country, there is a poem that talks about bring me your tired, your poor, your folks that are yearning to be free. Don't quote me if I said that wrong. But I know it says something to that effect. And so this resolution to me just feels like a complete affront to that. And I think liberty and that having people come to this country is a key part of our history. And so, again, if there's concerns about the refugee resettlement, how that's being managed as a federal law, I encourage you to talk to your representative. That's important. That's what they're there for. But I just don't see that that's our role as a county. So I would be supportive of Supervisor Long's motion to basically take a look at, to postpone indefinitely, I believe that was your motion, Supervisor Long, and make sure that we do have communication, because I also think it's important for us as a community to have communication, and if we can set up structures within the county or the lines of communication so folks are aware of what's happening, and we all have that moving forward, then I think that's a good plan. Okay, any other comments from the committee? No? Okay, yeah, Supervisor Counter.
Just a question, and this would be partially on the legal side, I guess, but if we postpone indefinitely, is there a difference between that for whether that's prejudicial or not prejudicial, where this can be, again, if at a point that you bring things forward that this needs to be addressed?
It is not prejudicial. The same exact resolution can't be brought back before a committee, but a resolution in a different format or asking for something else could be brought back to committee in the future. Chair or Supervisor Long's motion to postpone indefinitely would kill this resolution, but require us to set up the communication strategy. But in the future, a different resolution could be brought forward at some point when there's more facts and information as indicated by Supervisor Long.
Supervisor Counter.
In the process of doing this, how would you see us being able to gather the information? It sounds like there's a bunch of different organizations that become involved with this, and how would you see being able to have the ability to react to this? So a lot of times these things come in and all of a sudden they're thrust upon you, and if you haven't had the ability to prepare for it, how would we be able to organize to ensure that we have the time to react?
And I can respond to that in just a little bit. There is a Senate bill currently pending. It's 2023 Senate Bill 916. And that Senate bill is proposing to create Wisconsin Statute 66.0443, which requires local governments to designate an individual for consultation required under the Refugee Resettlement and Assistance Program. So it does look like in the legislature currently in Wisconsin that the Senate bill is being addressed, and basically it would set up a process for a chief elected official to be assigned in each jurisdiction, and then all local units of government, meaning cities, villages, towns, counties, and school districts, would be involved in the communication process. So that might be one avenue, if that bill were to proceed forward, that sets forth the structure and framework for communication to come from basically the volunteer organizations or the federal government to the local governments. So that's one way I think that this could be addressed, and it looks like that was recently submitted, and so it's just, it was read for the first time and referred to the Committee on Transportation and Local Government on January 11th of this year.
Yep. Supervisor Long.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, because you can have that communication network in place, but how is it going to be invoked? And how are we going to make sure that the right people are going to get the information? So I think that's something else that we could discuss at the time that we hear back from the county administrator as to what is that communication network. Then we can make sure that we've got to make sure that we're comfortable that there are ways of invoking that, so make sure everybody gets the information that they need. Is that reasonable, or?
Yeah, sounds like
That's another way of saying I'm not really sure, but it's a really good question.
Sounds like I've been assigned a task. Got it.
You have. Well, not yet.
Okay, any other discussion by committee members? Seeing none, motion by Supervisor Long to postpone indefinitely, second by Supervisor Fiedler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. Thank you.
You want a 5-minute recess then?
We'll take a 5-minute recess.